this is the point, which is even in the on the UN website. You have the European International Law Institute also saying it. I'm talking about credible platforms. I did a very good research there. Not just on resolution 1608, even though Barrister Tim, as I'm coming to you now, I want you to get into the technicalities of resolution 1608. It was stated that it is not necessarily legally binding. UN resolutions from the General Assembly are not necessarily legally binding between member states. But there is a point there. It also states very categorically that these resolutions can actually move political changes. And these were some of the political changes that led to the plebiscite, and which is what I would like us to talk about. The plebiscite that was fraudulent. But Mbeseha can testify that it was a yes and a we. It also led to uh, Cameroon ignoring the need to have us sign a binding document that could have been submitted to complete the process of joining Cameroon. So as we get into Article 4 and Article 5 of this resolution, or Paragraph 4, Paragraph 5, as you may want to put it, I want us to consider something, Barrister T. Now, for a seasoned diplomat like Tibonage to make such a statement, I particularly would like to look at it from two standpoints. From a positive standpoint, which is a wake-up call for Amazonians to measure on what they have control over. And I think what we have control over right now is the gun. We can actually dictate the pace of diplomacy with our gun. That is what we have control. Number three, it indicates something which could be an insult. It delegitimizes, from his perspective, it delegitimizes the UN Resolution 1608. It also does something, it undermines the Amazonian liberation movement that is mostly focused on this resolution. Even though if we advance history to 1984 and 1985, you realize that Fongoji Dinka revised it when he conceived the name Amazonia in another way that puts us in a better position. If we want to take the cessation law, we can apply that as Cameroon actually self-divorcing or separating from a union that was falsely orchestrated. Now, I want you to talk on this line and really educate the people of Amazonia the implication of this statement, the power that these resolutions have, and what we as the people of Amazonia can do right now. That's why I gave you this backdrop so you can talk on these three aspects. Barrister Mbeseha, please.
Well, thank you for having me. I think this is when we should listen carefully. I said earlier this week
Yeah.
that when something comes out of the mouth of a diplomat, we should be very, very careful in analyzing it. You say these people don't have an interest to hurt us or to make us gain. Sometimes they tell you the bad truth or what it is. And having said that, let me tell you here, United Nations resolutions, General Assembly resolutions might be binding. Some are just opinion, some are binding. And in this case, 1608 was taken under a section of the United Nations Charter. The United Nations Charter of 1945 created something new that they had not been seen in the world before. They created what the International Trust System, which is from Article 75 down the road. Article 75, Article 76, Article 77. They fall under the
Yeah.
International Trust System. And unless I'm reading something different, Mr. Tebonaj did not say that General Assembly resolutions are not. He said, if I read the same quote, 1608 is a not. That was the word he used. And to see whether this is a not or not, we must go by, we cannot just examine Article 40, Article 5 and 4. We must look back because at Resolution 6288 was the last resolution that the UN passed over British Southern Cameroon, or the British administered Southern Cameroon. That's the last resolution. But it was a culmination of several acts of the United Nations that had taken place prior to 1608. And again, I said the Charter of 1945 created a section in the in the, in the charter called the International Trusteeship. And under that trusteeship, international trusteeship, the United Nations Recognition Committee evolved a method by which all the trust territories that fell under the trust of Article 75, 76, and 77 had to be decolonized. And the administering authority that assumed authority over those trusts signed those documents. And by that document, there was a process to decolonize the trust territories. In this instant case, it was the 1946 Trust Agreement signed by the UK on the 13th of December 1946. That agreement specified how to decolonize the trust territories that they were having. The same agreement was signed by France over East Cameroon, French Cameroon. It was signed by Britain over Tanganyika, because that was a trust territory. It was signed by Belgium over Rwanda and Burundi, and so forth and so forth. And so until you go back there, before you understand what Table Nash is saying, that agreement of 1946 stated in Article 3 that the administering authority, that's UK, was going to administer the territory and lead it to independence, as defined in Article 1 of the Charter, as well with Article 76B of the Charter. What does Article 76B say, which the British agreed to do? They will lead this authority, that place they were taking authority over, to independence, one, or self-government. There was not room for plebiscite there. There was no room for alternative. No. The agreement said lead them to independence as per Article 76B. In fact, it said Article 76 of the Charter. And Article 76 deals with B, which says people, trust territories must come out and become independent or trust or self-governing. That's the basic principle that the British accepted to do. But going forward, the British violated that very document that they had signed up to. Fast forward in 1959, they came out again, the British and the United States, and the British and the United Nations came out with Resolution 1350. What did Resolution 1350 say? Resolution 1350 authorized the US, recommended by the UK, that they should organize a plebiscite in northern Cameroon and southern Cameroon. What were they going to do? They were going to organize this plebiscite to decide whether northern Cameroon should become part of Nigeria before they get independence on 1st of October 1960. That was by itself a violation of the 1946 agreement. 1949 came. The French came to the United Nations and reported that the territory you gave us is ripe for independence. The United Nations simply passed a resolution ordering that East Cameroon shall get independent 1st of January 1960. It was not an opinion that somebody could ignore. They didn't come there. If they had the opportunity, they would have come there and said, remember, Cameroon under France was a trust territory. But France had a colony next to it. which was Gabon. Gabon was the oldest French colony right there. They had a colony next to it, Central African Republic and Chad. Did you not come there and say, let the people of East Cameroon or French Cameroon choose to join either Chad, to join either Central African Republic, or to join Gabon? They simply said these people arrived for independence. And the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution. 1st of June, people get 1st of January, get your independence. And then, again, I see a series of violations. After that, they had proposed this referendum for Northern Cameroon, which took place in November 1959. They actually went to the United Post and organized a plebiscite in Northern Cameroon, which was another violation, asking the people to get independence, where they will join Nigeria immediately to get independence on 1st of October, or they will postpone it for another date. And they voted no, we don't want to join Nigeria to get independence on October 1st. Nigeria was not yet independent. Cameroon was not yet independent. So this was a violation of the original agreement by itself. But fast forward, they came again now in 1952, 1949, and passed Resolution 1352, which now imposed this so-called plebiscite. We shall organize the plebiscite in southern Cameroon. In fact, not southern Cameroon, in the territory are given to the British. That's British Cameroon, north and south together. They came there and passed the resolution. We shall organize a plebiscite,
Yeah,
11th February. But this plebiscite will be organized in the south and in the north.
yeah.
But the results will be counted separately. These people will be given one entity to administer, British Cameroon. Why would they organize a plebiscite there and count the results differently, one for the north and one for the south? A total violation of the text that they took
By
away.
Stambesia, let me come in. By Stambesia, let me come in. Let me come in there. Now, I'm just listening to you. The way you're painting the picture is just showing the fraud, like a calculated fraud from stage to stage. A lot of violations where lawmakers are violating their own principles in a very
That's what I'm
technical way.
saying.
So just to give you the opportunity to complete what you're about to say, do you think that Fibonacci is ignorant of these
No,
violations,
no, it's not ignorant.
or
I've
he's
come to learn to.
conscious of them, but trying to distract us because these people
No,
are not
no,
willing
no,
to take accountability for their mistakes?
no, Paddy,
I'm just asking
let me learn.
you, come.
Now, if you
Go
allow
ahead.
me to learn, that's what I was coming to learn. People now
Yeah.
see all this. That's why I said sometimes strangers know our history more than we do ourselves. I says, look, again, where was I? I said they now come now and put in this so-called plebiscite, which was itself illegal, was absolutely illegal. Again, worst of all, saying that the North will have something different, the South will have something different. Maybe we don't know. On the 11th of February, there was a plebiscite in Northern Cameroon. The same day,
Mhm.
there was one, the same plebiscite in the Southern Cameroon, but the results were counted differently. If the results had been counted one, probably would have given a different result, but they were counted differently. Again, a violation of the UK agreed text of 1946 that they signed. But nonetheless, they went on and did that and organized the plebiscite 11th of February. And now comes Resolution 1608. Resolution 1608 dealt with two things. They dealt with the plebiscite in in the British administered territory, but in two separate forms. They treated Article 1 of 1608. So yeah, the people of Northern Cameroon voted to join Nigeria. They stated there that the plebiscite were counted separately. Then
Mhm.
Article 2, the Southern Cameroon people voted to join Nigeria, counted separately again, and they continue. Fast forward now to your Article 4 that you said. They came now to Article 4 and said Article 4A or 1. No, based on the results so far from the plebiscite, Northern Cameroon shall get independence on 1st of June 1961 upon joining Nigeria as a separate province, whatever thing. Then they come to and then they come to 5. Southern Cameroon will get independence on the 1st of October upon joining Cameroon. without more. Then they brought in Article 5. And then they ended, that's important in 1608, they ended with these words: the trust agreement signed by UK on, on 13th December 1946 will come to an end with respect to Northern Cameroon on the 1st of June 1. With respect to Southern Cameroon on the 1st of October 2. The legal question is this. It is important for us to know this. The legal question is this. They signed one trust agreement. How can a single one trust agreement end twice? One is ending on the same trust agreement is ending on the 1st of June with regard to so-called Northern Cameroon, which did not exist, and one is ending on 1st of October. So you see that the British, with the ignorance or the connivance of the United Nations itself, had created two trust territories out of one. One now called Northern Cameroon and another one called Southern Cameroon. How do you get even to this? Northern Cameroon and Southern Cameroons, they call them Cameroon, was the idea of the UK. They were given one Cameroon. They divided them into two, Northern Cameroon and Southern Cameroon. Why? Because the trust agreement allowed them, if they had neighboring countries to administer alongside the the other colonies. There was nothing in the 1946 agreement that Northern and Southern Cameroon. There was only one.
I do not think, in my personal opinion, that Tibonaj, as a diplomat who has worked in the Cameroons, is ignorant of the legal account and historical accounts that Barrister Mbeseha has just illustrated here. I do not think. My question is, what are his objectives? Because if we know his objectives, we could make action points. It could help us to diversify our diplomacy. This is what I want us to talk about. We've educated our people a lot about this. What could possibly be his objectives? Why? Is he trying to distract us from what we can use to dig into? Because Ambazonians want the root cause of the problem to be addressed. But Timo Nash apparently doesn't. When I had a discussion with him last year, he said we shouldn't talk about the history. Let's focus on 2016, which means he doesn't want the root cause of the problem to be addressed. So,
Now, but if
I'm
you allow me to finish, I'm not landed. I'm not landed. I have a few
no, no,
sentences
the
to
point
make.
is that you're taking a little bit too long. When I come back to you,
No,
you
no, no, I'm
may
not taking too
conclude on
long.
that.
This is, let me just finish. Let
Okay,
me
please
land
conclude
before you
on
pose
this.
that question.
What do you think
Yes,
could be his objective making such
I'll
a
come to you right
statement?
there. I'll come to you right
The
now.
statement he has
After,
made there, let's go
yeah,
direct
let
to
me
the
take.
point, Barrister. What are
Yeah,
his
no,
objectives
we cannot escape.
making that
We cannot
statement?
escape some of the facts. We'll go to that point, but listen to me carefully. We are going with 1608, which was 21st of April 1961. That resolution comes up, which we are relying on. It deals with all what I was trying to explain, but we're relying on it. What happened in that resolution? Cameroon voted against it. In
Mhm.
other words, they refused the plebiscite because they voted against the whole resolution. They refused the plebiscite and all those were dates for setting up, for getting independent or not. They voted no to it. And it did not end there. This was 21st of April. 30th of May, that very year, the very Republic of Cameroon, to show their discontent with 1608, went to the ICJ. They sued Britain. What was their action against the ICJ? They said, look, Mr. Britain, you did not even administer this territory as allowed. You are wrong. You are what you were calling plebiscite and doing all these things was wrong because you did not respect the 1946 agreement. The judgment is that all of us can read it. And so, how that case ended
So, Barrister
is,
Messiah, what is the
yeah,
objective there? All
yeah,
of this
this,
supports
this,
the
this is
fact
the
that
objective.
there is fraud.
This is the
What is the
objective.
objective of Tibo Nash
Yes,
making
the
such a
objective is that,
statement?
yes, now the tribunal says that this thing is not. So this resolution you are trying to depend on is not very useful. Then he goes further and tells you, if you want to get independence, there are only three ways by his own estimation. then you get your independence. It doesn't deny that you have the right to independence. First, rule one, you fight and fight like the Americans fought. How did the Americans fight? We don't have a lot of time. But if you just look fast into it, the American war,
No, the
that,
Americans fought
no,
with the
that
armed
expired,
yes.
but it started in the Boston Tea Party. It was the hooligans who threw out chases of tea from the British ships into the ocean. And what was their slogan? No taxation without representation. We will not pay taxes for our tea from Boston to Britain because we're not represented there. That was one way he told us. You can fight these people. And from that, if I were the one in charge, I would
We're
open the
going to
border.
get onto the how. We're going to get
Yeah,
onto the how. Please, Mr.
we're
Mbeseha,
fighting.
Mr.
We're
Mbeseha, please.
fighting.
Madam
No,
Mbeseha,
we're
please.
fighting.
We'll get into the
Okay,
how
we're
of the
fighting at
fight.
the speed
I
now.
am
We're
asking
fighting.
what could be his
That,
objective.
Paddy, I'm giving you the way you're cutting me. We're not fighting. We're already in the middle of war. We're 8 years into the war. We're fighting like the Americans fought. And the Americans adopted a slogan, no taxation without representation. If we're fighting now, can we get something out of that call? No taxation. Can we say no occupation without authorization? Well, because we're calling the Republic trespassers. They are trespassing to our land. We did not authorize them. That's what Tebonash is saying. He's saying second two, I'm trying to get his final intention. He says second two, if you don't get that one, there's only one way, there's another way they can get their independence. You can fight them and go and get what he calls a negotiated referendum. Take note of his word, a negotiated referendum. A negotiated referendum comes from the peace conference, from the table of negotiations. That's what Southern Sudan did. They fought for 30 years. They got the referendum on the conference table. East Timor got the referendum on on the conference table. So he says, if you choose that way, you fight them until like we're trying to do with the Switzerland negotiation. Who told you? Who told us that on the Switzerland negotiation, if the thing had ever met, a referendum would have been off the table? Would have been there. What would have been negotiated if there must be a referendum? What are the conditions for the referendum? Who will organize it? Who will do this? That would have been part of the negotiation. The bonus says that we have that option. And then he says, thirdly, or if you think he can fight and fight until the Republic will just pack the thing. These are three possibilities. Where has he wronged us? I think he has rather opened his
No,
eyes
I did not
to a
say
different
it's wrong.
option.
I wanted to get his objective, which you are giving from your perspective.